Welcome to the Holistic Grief Coach podcast, the podcast about shining your light and rediscovering purpose after loss. I'm Kayleigh O'Connor, grief coach, integrative trauma coach, and founder of Good Grief and the Holistic Grief Coach certification. Here we're opening up conversations about grief and the journey of reclaiming your identity when life has changed forever. You'll hear inspiring stories from certified holistic grief coaches and other guests, as well as solo episodes from me where I'll share tools, teachings, and truths from my own path along grief. So if you're here to rebuild and rediscover who you are after loss, or if you're looking to become a grief coach or find some purpose in your next chapter of life, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Hello, Denise, and welcome to the Holistic Grief Coach podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. How are you doing?
Thank you, Kayleigh. Thank you for inviting me. I'm doing great and so excited to be here today.
For everybody listening in, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from Windsor, Ontario, Canada today. It's a beautiful fall day, so gorgeous. So happy to be here.
I love that. I haven't been to Canada, but it's definitely on the top of my wish list.
Oh, yes. And I haven't been to the UK and it's on the top of my list.
We'll be organising a grief coach meetup soon. So hopefully we can.
Absolutely. I will be there.
Amazing. So obviously you've just finished the certification and I know that you're starting out as a holistic grief coach in your area. And I'd love to know, for me, obviously, to get to know you a little bit more, but also for the people listening, can you share a little bit about your personal grief story, your journey, and what brought you to this work?
Yes, absolutely. So my grief journey started back in 2017 when my dad, Antoine, passed away from Alzheimer's, and he was living in a long-term care home at the time in the Alzheimer's unit. But honestly, the grieving started years before that because of the Alzheimer's, where people often call it the long goodbye. And that's exactly what it felt like. When he did pass, I do remember feeling like I was in a fog and kind of floating, unfocused, and in disbelief that, his life had actually come to an end. And a couple of years later, I found myself wanting to understand grief on a deeper level. And so, why does this feeling of grief feel like unlike any other emotion, and why does it impact us so differently? So that curiosity led me to study thanatology, the study of death, dying, and bereavement. And it was along the way that I realized something very important, and that was that everything that I was feeling was completely normal, and I was not alone in that journey.
I love that you found that, through your own journey, actually realizing what grief is. So much around us creates that lack of stigma. I say a lot of stigma around, the way we should be grieving and that grief should finish. And actually that can make us feel like we're doing something wrong, that you found that validation and actually what you were experiencing was absolutely normal.
Yes.
That then help you to then understand, you said you wanted to understand grief on a deeper level. And I know that you've got multiple things that you offer, with your art as well. Journey then unfold.
So that journey unfolded just because, I was so confused with the way that my relationship was with my parents prior to his passing. It was a very difficult relationship. And so my training unfolded really over COVID because everything shut down. Although I continued to work from home, not having the external distractions really helped me to hone into various certifications. And so that was when I started taking multiple certifications. And that was 6 years ago. And I've been in school for 6 years until this August when I graduated from your certification. So not being in some type of certification at the moment does feel a bit awkward, but great at the same time because I have everything that I need now to go out into the world. So that's how it unfolded.
And I love that you're so honest that you say, you've been studying for, 6 years. And I know you've been
offering different things alongside those studies. But if
Yes.
anybody's listening and they've got a little bit of that, do I need more? What would you say to that person around, the qualifications that perhaps they do need, or qualifications that actually they can continue learning on whilst offering support and getting out there?
Although we all will have lived experience, those of us who are coming into this calling, typically it's because we've lost someone that we've loved so deeply and we've hurt so deeply. And some of us will, as David Kessler will say, make meaning out of that loss. And making meaning for some people might be, erecting a statue, taking certification courses, starting an organization, a grief cafe, a book, a journaling clubs. There are so many things that people might lean towards in their grief journey. And I think that, the most beautiful thing that people can bring into this career, this calling that you might have, is your heart, your lived experience. I know that for some of us, we struggle with imposter syndrome, and so we feel like maybe that's not enough. So we want to have that piece of paper. But honestly, to help someone, you don't need anything. If you can just open your heart and not have any judgment towards how that person is going through their own grief journey, what they might be saying, feeling, doing, or not doing is their business. And, it's up to us to just witness their grief, be a support for them. And that's the main thing that we can do for those in grief, is just open up our heart and meet people where they are.
Thank you for sharing that. And I know that was putting you on the spot a little bit. I love that you just spoke from your heart there around actually, you and me, from what you shared with your grief, just knowing that you're not being judged and that where you are at is totally okay is huge, isn't it, for somebody navigating grief alone? So if anybody's listening and thinking, oh, I'm not sure if I'm ready, you're probably more ready than you think.
I think so. And certification of any kind, especially, the certification for me was what wrapped up this beautiful gift that we're offering, right? It just wrapped it all up so nicely, just to ensure that you are on the right track, and that, as you have so eloquently drilled into the program, is how to be trauma informed. So I think that not only should you come into this with an open heart, but sensitivity of not re-traumatizing, who you're spending time with or triggering them in any way.
Huge foundation of this work. So I know we started talking about your journey a little bit, but I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit more about what was life like before loss. And I hear that you experienced some level of anticipatory grief, in your journey. So maybe even before that, like, how did you experience life, and how did loss shift who you are now?
Yes, there was an anticipatory grief for sure. And before my father died, my relationship with him and with my parents as a whole was complicated. My parents had a very fragmented marriage, and so the tension between them made it hard for me to have a normal, healthy relationship with my mom, especially. So it wasn't until my father passed away that you really find out who the glue is in the family. Because you have two parents, you just think it's the both of them. But when one is missing, you really see who was the person that was keeping everybody together. So for me, my father was my protector from the harsh words from my mom. He was my confidant, and he was the one person who understood the pain that I was experiencing in that difficult relationship with my mother. So in my early 40s, I made the difficult decision and the choice to create some distance between us, for my own mental health, for the sake of my marriage, for the way that I wanted to show up as a parent with my children. I did not want to be the kind of mother my mother was to me with my own children. So that was very important to distance myself. So years later, when I did see my father again, I was shocked to see that he was already showing those symptoms of Alzheimer's. And it was then that I came to terms with knowing that, wow, my relationship with him will never be the same. I have no idea how bad, this disease will affect him. And then the roles reversed, where suddenly he was the one that needed protection and love and care. And even though I tried to step into that, a part of me still longed for him to be that strong pillar for me, because physically he was the same person, this very large, tall, thin, Baltic, strong man becoming so weak. So when he passed away, I remember feeling panicked and in many ways orphaned, because when I lost my father physically to death, the confirmation of the fractured relationship that I had with my mother wasn't going to change. So I felt like I lost both parents at the same time, each in very different ways. So that experience profoundly changed me. It deepened my compassion and my understanding of grief and all of its layers. And it's what led me to the work that I do today, and walking alongside others, whether it's due to a loss of a death or estrangement or identity loss due to any of those types of losses. That's where I find myself today, how I'm here today.
Thank you for sharing that. I feel like a lot of people will relate to that sense of, having that connection with an integral person. And then when that person dies, how very much alone we feel, having never had to live life without that person as that protector or cheerleader, sounding board, and to then all of a sudden be in this sense of, oh, like, where do I go? And having to make these big shifts and decisions for yourself for the first time. It's a big rupture in life, isn't it? It's not just the one loss, it's also all of these other losses and changes that follow.
Yes, agreed. Yes, they're very profound. And when you lose someone that you just has always been there and now they're not.
It sounded like you shifted roles, you shifted into different roles. You mentioned having your dad protect you, and then all of a sudden you then being the kind of care for him, and this kind of shifting and changing as you grow alongside this grief.
Yes.
I feel like there's a lot of turning points in that journey in itself, but were there any key moments for you that became turning points in your journey with grief?
Yes, I can clearly remember that turning point. I'm an abstract artist, and when my father died, I remember standing at my art station, staring at all of my art supplies that once brought me so much joy and so many beautiful paintings, and bringing that joy onto the canvas. And I remember thinking to myself, how could I possibly feel joy again when my father is gone? And I felt so much guilt around the idea of creating joyful paintings. So does that mean that I have to change my style? And is joy something that I'm allowed to feel again and should feel again? So about 3 months later, I felt this undeniable pull in my chest, almost like a nudge. And I opened up a brand new mixed media pad, and that's when I began art journaling. And I captured the last 5 days of my father's life, because we got the phone call, around dinner on a Tuesday night, that it's time for us to come to the long-term care home. Things weren't looking well, and so that we should come as soon as possible. So we didn't know if we had missed the opportunity or if we had an hour. And it turns out that our father gave us, the blessing of 5 days. So that journal became my way of making meaning out of his death. And I created this 5-day journal of his last 5 days, including the entire funeral and all of the feelings and thoughts that came with that. And strangely enough, now it's become a living journal, because I continue to add to that journal. And it's what inspired me to become a therapeutic art practitioner, to show people that art does heal. And with the holistic grief coaching, with the grief education, all of those healing modalities, will help me to bring more peace and different tools in people's lives to help them deal with their own griefs. For me, the turning point was getting back to my art.
I don't even know an art journal is. And if anybody's listening and thinking, what is an art journal? Maybe I'm already art journaling. What is that? How does that help grief?
An art journal, what I did was with this mixed media pad, I paired, because I wasn't ready to write the words down, I just watercolored the background of all of the pages with abstract shapes, or just letting the watercolor paints just blend into each other and create those beautiful bursts of color when they mix into each other, when the water is still quite wet on your paper. Just let that sit and let it dry. And then the next day, flip the page over and continue on until I was actually ready to put the words to the paper. And so once I was ready to do that, my pages were ready and waiting for me in all of their beauty and all of the abstract way. And then I was able to add little doodles to them, or add gems, or little glitter or sparkles. I also added the last Father's Day card that I gave to my father. So you could really put anything you want in an art journal. It's yours. It's a reflection of you, of what you want to remember. I was so worried about not remembering the details clearly as time passed, and I'm so glad that I did that, because when I do open the journal to add another page to it or another experience, I can look back to see how much I've grown, but also to remember the little details of that moment and all the painful joys that we experienced during that time.
Thank you for sharing that. I can visualize it, and I've always loved collaging, and it feels like maybe it's something I'm already doing to make it more intentionally an expression of grief and an exploration of like my inner landscapes. I love that and would love to learn more about that from you.
Oh, that's it. And yes, it does sound like you're doing exactly that. There's no rules, mixed media, collaging, using anything from nature, using pictures you already have. There are so many ways that people can use an art journal for any purpose, any stage of their life. And I highly recommend it. That was, for me, the turning point, to know that it was okay to have that mindfulness moment, to have that growth that we need.
So that for you then shifted you into a space of working with your grief by the sounds of it.
Absolutely. Yes.
I love that. And I feel like, I dance and always love theatre and art. So when I lost my dad, that's what I was drawn to. I didn't have a therapist or a coach initially. I was creatively expressing myself through these different modalities. Now I realize that how much of that was actually me working with my grief, even if I didn't realize it. There's that intuition, isn't there, that comes through. Your body often knows what it needs, and it communicates in different ways that you might expect or be ready for.
Absolutely. And you tapped into your body, releasing that energy. And I released it in another way, just creatively. So all of us will find our own ways. There isn't just one way. And tapping into all of those ways is good balance, to not just lean towards one thing, because, you might get bored of it, or you might exhaust your creativity when it comes to, okay, well, I've already done that. What else can I do? So shaking it up with all of the ways. And again, the holistic grief coaching, bringing in the body. That is, I think that the body is key.
Well, we talk a lot in the certification, and you and your peer coach, Martha, were bringing so many different metaphors to describe your grief. And you're both very artistic. I always felt really very clear what it was you were feeling through these different metaphors. And what we've learned is obviously that the subconscious body speaks through colors and metaphors. So we can get into that through modalities like the ones you shared.
Yes.
I love that you did the certification, because I feel like it kind of aligns so well with everything you already were doing.
I agree. That was, as I mentioned before, I think that was the ribbon on top of the wrapping of the gift that we're bringing to the world of coaching people in grief. The certification for me was part of the puzzle that was missing, and now here we are offering these services to our community and to the world, and letting them know that there's more than just talk therapy. There are so many other ways that people can move through their grief if they're open to it and don't think that it's weird or it's not something that they can do or they resonate with. Trying something once, I think it's a great thing for expansion and growth of your grief journey is a great thing.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Trying new things, seeing what works for you, knowing that grief is universal, but it's deeply personal. And so
Yeah.
what works for us.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about what drew you to the holistic grief coach certification out of, others that you may have looked at.
Well, there were two main reasons why I joined the certification. So, as I mentioned, the first was the holistic piece, because as we know, grief is not just emotional, it touches the body, mind, and spirit. And I wanted an approach that, truly honored all of those parts of us. And I wanted an approach that created the space for tools like the breath work and how to be trauma informed in every coaching session. During the course of my life, I've experienced anxiety, I've experienced panic attacks, and I don't like those feelings. They don't feel good. And I've had to learn how to calm my own nervous system. So I felt like a much more compassionate way of dealing with the grief was bringing in the holistic part for people. So that really helped me as well. The second reason was you, Kayleigh, and it's because I watched a promo video that you had to advertise your certification. It was quite lengthy. I couldn't stop watching it. I remember watching you and listening to you and the credibility and the presence that you brought to that video. And that made me trust you even more, knowing that you were that right person for me to take me to the next level. I could tell that you were going to be my person because you had that deep grasp of what you were teaching. And, as I mentioned, I have taken a few certifications and I don't take certification lightly. I want to ensure that what I am exchanging monetary energy for is going to give me what I need to give me that confidence to go out into the world. So those were the reasons. That's what drew me to this certification.
I'm so glad you did. I remember getting your email and saying, is there any space? I've said this to you, but everybody listening probably feels this, but you have such an amazing energy to you. And I felt that alignment from your first message. You've been such an amazing part of the certification. I feel like every cohort has like a community culture, and I feel like you've been a big part of creating that family and that connection that we've got on the certification. So I'm so glad that you joined and that you felt that.
Thank you so much, Kayleigh. I know I was late. There was hours left, and I was so happy that you waited for me to hop in. I wouldn't have wanted to wait. I think I would have convinced you one way or another to just let me in. One more person, please. And I'm glad it worked out. Thank you.
So glad as well. Was there a particular module or a session or a tool that really kind of landed for you or resonated during the certification?
I will never forget the session, although it was later in certification. But I don't want to minimize all of the other lessons that we learned prior to shadow work. But honestly, when we got to the shadow work, that was a turning point because I've heard of shadow work, but I didn't want to know about it because it sounded too scary. So I learned that shadow carries all of the beliefs and the feelings and the experiences that we push down, whether out of fear or shame or what society tells us is acceptable or not. And so in grief, what I learned from you is that our shadow can hold all of those unresolved emotions, those unspoken words, and guilt, and how we should grieve and how we shouldn't grieve. Exploring sharing shadow work gave me such a powerful opportunity for that deeper self-awareness, the healing, the integration. And it's such a big topic that I am not done learning it. I will continue to learn about the shadow work as I continue my own journey with all of the things that are coming towards me in life that I don't know about yet. The shadow work was one of the lessons or modules that really hit me straight on.
There's a great book, Book of Shadow Work. Kayleigh Shaheen is the name of the author. That's a really good one. But I feel like a lot of people like you, it's like, shadow work, what is that? That's going to be really scary. And actually, in the training, we've been talking about how much of grief is shadowed because of society and because of the pressures we put on ourselves, to push down what we truly feel, and how that then creates this shadow that we're carrying without acknowledging. I'm so happy that felt like a really important piece of your journey, and to then actually continue it, because I do think it's a practice, right? A lot of what we're learning, we learn, but then it's actually integrating with that in our day to day. Because I mean, I do shadow work every week with my coach because it's so important. So I love that that was your standout one. Did you feel like there was anything in particular that you took from that personally that you want to share?
For me in particular, it was I have such a little childhood Denise, the little child in me that is so hurt. And I have a friend who many years ago said to me, Denise, since you don't have a mother, you should mother yourself. And I remember thinking, what does that mean? That's weird. How could I mother myself? And so now I know what that means. I know that in the shadows and in the background, that deep inside, that hurt is coming from the younger me, because that's when it all started so long ago, and I carry her with me. So I am learning to mother her. So I would say that is what touched me profoundly in the shadow work, is acknowledging the little me and knowing that it's okay to mother her at my age and give her what I need back then.
Thank you for sharing that. I feel like that's so powerful and such a big permission slip for anybody who's navigating that, something similar, because it's like Peter Pan, right? And his cheeky shadow is rebellious and trying to get Peter's attention. And it is that inner child in us being like, I might just need you to shine the light on me a little bit and give me some love and witness what I'm feeling and tend to that part of ourselves.
Yes, I love that. Thank you for the reference to Peter Pan. I hadn't thought about that, but yes.
When you think about the training and your own grief, how do you feel the training's impacted your grief emotionally or somatically, spiritually, or something else? How do you feel like the training's impacted your grief journey?
Well, the training impacted me on all of those levels. I mean, once you say holistic, there's no way that it can't impact you in every way. So emotionally, as I mentioned before, outside of this podcast, that you gave me a new language and new words that I could use. The one word is titration, and what that means, just taking everything so slowly and not rushing, because sometimes we feel in our grief that it's taking too long. And so you allowed me anyway to give myself permission that it's okay to never be fully done with this grief. It's going to come in waves, and some days it'll be more intense than others. That's how it affected me emotionally. Somatically, just becoming more aware of how grief lives in your body, and my jaw and my shoulders, my fatigue and just energy level, those types of things. And then spiritually, how it deepened my sense of connection and reminding me that grief isn't just about loss, but also about the love that continues on. So altogether, the training helped me to process my own grief more fully and to feel more grounded in all of those different aspects of ourselves.
I feel like a big theme of what you've been sharing is that sense of acknowledgement and self-acknowledgement, and what being with yourself, slowing down and allowing yourself to be where you are without that judgment. Does that feel true?
Oh, yes, that's very true. Slowing down and just letting myself be, because for a long time after my father passed away, because he was 87, I felt guilty about mourning my father because society tells us, oh, he lived a good life. Wow, he lived so long. At least, he lived to be this age. I felt like because my father was old, that of course he should be dead. Therefore, I should accept that he's dead to just move on with it. Instead, it took me, as I mentioned, years to come to the realization that that's my father, and I only have one. He's irreplaceable. I'm glad that he lived a long life because that meant that I got to live life longer with him, but I still would have liked more time.
I always say to my clients, he's still your dad, like
Mm.
your dad. It is like allowing yourself to grieve for that relationship and also the person who was there from day one.
Yes.
Knowing that therefore there is no end point to that. It's an ongoing journey for the rest of your life. It's scary that people think it ends, that grief ends, because that would mean the relationship comes to a complete stop, or that there's a detachment of some sort, which is so outdated when it comes to actually what grief is and how it's a part of us, and it's something we learn to hold and carry.
Yes, you're so right, Kayleigh.
Quick pause in today's episode. If you've ever felt the pull to turn your own grief into purpose, to support others with compassion and confidence, this is your invitation. The Holistic Grief Coach certification is enrolling now. It's a 6-month trauma-informed training that equips you with the tools to guide others through grief while also transforming your own journey. To find out more and join the next cohort, simply DM me the word certification at goodgrief_UK on Instagram. Now, let's get back in and enjoy today's conversation.
What parts of yourself do you feel like you've reconnected to throughout this journey since January now?
Certification definitely allowed me to reclaim my vulnerability, my ability to sit with difficult emotions. Prior to certifications, I believed that we had to bypass our emotions, and yet you told us that we have to feel them. Allowing myself to miss my dad while still being able to live my daily life alongside that yearning, giving myself that permission to feel with the tools that I learned in certification. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, I now have tools that I can turn towards to help me. So I'm not afraid of feeling now. It's okay to feel sad or to feel awful for as long as it takes, but know that I need to remember at the moment that I do have tools that can help me to get through those moments. I've also reconnected with my creativity by painting and journaling to process grief. My sense of purpose has grown as I support others in their loss, which has been deeply healing and very empowering to hear other people's stories as well. And that's where the magic is, knowing that you're not alone in your journey. And it could be any amount of time that you have lost your loved one. But knowing when you have that sense of community with others, that's where the healing is. Just finding something that resonates with someone else and knowing that they really get you.
I love that you shared that you've got to feel. You learn reconnected back to allowing yourself to be vulnerable, allowing yourself to be connected to people in that, and coming back to expression, which is a huge journey, isn't it? And a lot of people start a certification and think, okay, by the end of it, I'm going to have education, but it sounds like you also had a personal journey.
Yes, it was a personal journey. You can't take the certification without facing your own grief journey and bringing that in with you, because a lot of the coaching and the hours that we put in outside of the live calls, outside of our time with you, Kayleigh, and being paired up with a partner, we are working through our grief, witnessing another person's pain. Then it's your turn to be witnessed, your turn to share your journey. You can't do this kind of work if you're not honest with yourself and if you're not present with the person that you're listening to. So I agree with what you said. Yes, you definitely go through a whole new journey, but It's not scary. For anyone listening, I don't want anyone to think since I'm not done grieving or I'm feeling too much or it's just going to make me cry or set me back. No, look at it as empowerment, empowering yourself in your grief, facing the things that scare you, talking about it, breathing through it, having a few laughs with all of your peer coaches, and it's very healing. I would recommend certification. Even if people take this and think, I won't really advertise, I'll just do it for the few people that I know around me. Whoever you do it for, whoever is your why, you're going to come out of this certification a new person.
Thank you for sharing that. I feel
Yeah.
like so many people who've just started the certification, I think it's week 2 for the new cohort, and one of them yesterday said, Kayleigh, do we have to talk about grief in peer coaching? Like, if you can, some weeks it's going to be work and some week it's going to be relationships. And I think a lot of it often ties to grief anyway. There is no pressure, as you know, to go into anything too much too soon. There's always that sense of control you have as a client of what you share and what you talk about, and it's your journey. So my journey might look different to yours. The pace at which we talk about our grief is going to look different, but that is a transformative journey in itself. I love that you shared that it's not scary, it's about working with the things that scare you and allowing that to be the journey.
Yes.
I couldn't agree more.
It's all a journey. And the fact that we have a pulse and we're breathing, we're going to have this journey for the rest of our lives. Why not make it the best journey that we can make it? Because I have certain losses that I've experienced so far, but there will be others coming my way. Each grief journey will be unique because the relationship we have with that person is unique. Having the tools ready in your back pocket or in your heart that you could lean on is very important for everyone's mental health.
It's a life skill, isn't it, to be able to hold space for grief together as a community, all us holistic grief coaches. It's not just for our clients, but for whoever we come across in life experiencing grief, whether that's friends, family, or strangers. Being able to acknowledge grief and help people feel less alone in that, I think that's in itself is amazing.
I agree. It is a life skill.
I feel like I could talk to you all day, Denise.
Oh, me too. I could talk to you all day. Let's do it.
When you think about how your relationship with your emotions has changed, I'd love to know if there's anything you unlearned during the journey.
I've had to unlearn that I don't have to let go of the love of my father just because he's gone. I used to think that grief meant that I had to release my connection. He's gone, he's passed away, he's buried, the grass is growing over his grave, he's there. He's decomposing, he's doing all the things. I'm leaving, going into my car and living my life. So it's done. It's over. Yes, I had to release that thought that the connection with my father had to be released. And holding on to love might be something that might keep me stuck in my grief. But I learned that love doesn't vanish with loss, it just transforms us. I can carry him with me in my memories, in the rituals that I do, in the ways that it has shaped me today. People will say there's the continuing bonds, and I didn't know about that vocabulary as well. It took time to find those words. For me, continuing those bonds with my father in a brand new relationship with him now is very freeing. It allows me to honor him while still living fully, seeing grief as a continuing dialogue with the people that we've lost.
Thank you for sharing that. I feel like I relate with that completely personally around thinking grief means, I always say, put it in a box, put the grief in a box, move on, keep going with your life. And that is not true. That is the opposite of what grief is and how you can talk about your person and continue that relationship forever in just a new way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'd love to talk a little bit about you as a coach, if that feels okay, and talk to us a little bit about you do as a coach now, what kind of clients you're going to be supporting, what you feel like the energy of your work is.
I'm so happy to be able to talk about that because it's been such a long journey. Here I am, able to say fully with all my heart, I am a holistic grief coach who supports women in transforming loss or grief, estrangement, and identity shifts into a journey of self-discovery. In my own journey, I've had to rely on compassion and education, the somatic tools, and creativity to navigate my own griefs. The compassion has really allowed me to sit with my own emotions, as I mentioned, giving myself permission to feel them, offering patience and kindness to others when grief might be overwhelming. The education of this whole thanatology, death, dying, bereavement, that's helped me to understand how grief grows, how it works, how it affects the mind, the body, the spirit. It gave me the concrete tools to help me to move through certification. The somatic practices that I just learned, the grounding exercises, the belly breathing, the gentle movement, wiggling our toes and our noses and our shoulders and dancing in our seats, doing all of that to help us release all of the tension that in our dysregulated nervous systems, using creative processes like painting and journaling. All of this in one way or another will help to shape my coaching sessions depending on where my client is at, what their comfort level is. However, I don't want my clients to be comfortable 100% of the time. I'd like to stretch them with a word or a journaling prompt or picking a color and having the description to that color. How do you describe that color and how does it fit into your grief today? All of those things I think are so exciting to be able to bring all of those different parts into a grief session with my future clients.
You've got such a creative way of working that I feel like your sessions will always be very different, kind of intuitive and explorative. I think that's the best way to work with grief. I like my whiteboards in my sessions, and we'll work together to come up with visuals of what represents a person's grief journey, and that helps people understand themselves on new levels. I really hear that combination of tools, expressions, and nervous system support is going to be a really amazing experience for your clients.
Oh, I'm so excited about it. Thank you.
I just want to say, and this is something that I've witnessed with you as a coach over the last, it's more than 6 months, how much of a safe place you create for people. You've got everybody who's ever worked with you, I feel in breakout rooms has said like how much of a warm voice you have, but it's more than that. I feel like it's your energy. You really listen. You're always inquiring deeper into what you're hearing. I feel like that's a natural gift that you have around how you hold space for somebody, is you don't just hear what the words are, you want to know more. I feel like that in itself is what's going to grow people, right? Because you're seeing them fully, not just on that surface level. I think that's what makes a really great coach. I feel like whoever works with you is going to have such an amazing experience to help them really find themselves after everything they've navigated. So I'm really excited for you.
Thank you so much, Kayleigh. Safety is very important in the certification and outside of certification. Before I learned how important safety is, that's not something that I felt when I was growing up. I'm constantly looking for safety. So thank you for noticing that, because that is very important for me personally to feel safe in my environment, with the people I'm with what I'm sharing. Being vulnerable today and telling my story, knowing that so many other people that I know might check in, listen to today's podcast, and seeing a different side of me that they might not be used to seeing or hearing. But I know that I'm safe here with you. I know that I'm safe here in my space. Thank you for really drilling that into the program as well. because a lot of times when we've lost our loved one, that sense of safety is gone because we don't know who we are without them. Rebuilding that sense of safety after a loss is key.
For me, I relate with what you've said. Like there was a lack of safety in feeling emotion. I shut down a lot growing up or hid my emotions and was praised for that. Created some unhelpful patterns in the way I work with my emotions. A big part of what my goal has been with the certification is to help you all create this safe space, a sanctuary for people where they don't have to pretend. And I feel like you create that so naturally as a coach, as a person. I'm just excited for people to be able to connect with you on that level and to find, I want to learn more about the art journaling because I feel like you can bring so much to another person from everything you're already trained in, as well as this certification.
Well, thank you. I'd be happy to share that with you at any time in the future. If you want, we can definitely get together and explore what's possible for you, Kayleigh.
Love to have you do something.
Yes.
A couple more questions, if I can I ask. If you had maybe a previous version of you sat in front of you, or somebody sat in front of you who's not sure if they're ready to do the certification, what would you say to them?
I would say do it. Whether or not you're ready, you will be ready at the end of certification. You don't have to be fully prepared. You just have to be present and come in with your heart and good intentions, because at the end of certification, you will be ready. You'll learn all of the tools and the skills to step into this amazing work. And along the way, you will learn new layers of yourself and the ways that you can support others, how you can support yourself more fully. Don't keep your gifts to yourself. Get the certification and go out into the world and help others. There's someone out there waiting for you, specifically you, right? We all bring something unique and different to our heart space. So there's someone for everyone.
I love that. That shine your light. Shine your light. Somebody needs you.
Yes, love it. Shine your light. Absolutely.
We'll actually talk about where people can find you in a moment because it's a light metaphor.
Yes.
Are you ready for some quick fire questions just to end our podcast together?
Okay, I'm ready.
Is there a book or practice that's changed you?
Okay, I recently discovered this great book called The Book of Alchemy. I'm going to pronounce her name hopefully properly. Zuleika Jawad. It's a beautiful guide to using journaling as a tool for healing and self-discovery. She wrote this book. Her husband is John Batiste, a musician, and she wrote this book because she's been diagnosed several times in her life with cancer, leukemia specifically. And she combines essays and journals from like hundreds of writers and artists to help readers explore their emotions. So they're quick reads, and you don't have to read chapters. You could just read something that someone wrote today. It's either a page and a half, 2 pages maximum. And you can tap into that and see how it resonates with you. So for anyone navigating loss, this book definitely offers a compassionate space to transform your pain into a reflection, into resilience, and finding joy again.
Love that. The Alchemy, did you say?
The Book of Alchemy. The title is The Book of Alchemy by Zuleika Jawad.
Amazing. So, is there a quote or a phrase that's guided you recently or in your journey?
Yes, it's sticking with the theme. I can't stray from it and emphasize it enough, but a quote is by David Kessler. You have to feel it to heal it. There's no way around it.
Love that. And I love his works. I'm glad that you've brought that forward and resonated a lot for me around finding meaning and feeling. Okay.
Yes.
How would you describe grief in one word?
This might sound like an odd word to describe grief, but stick with me for one moment. And the word is, it's an awakening. It's an awakening of your emotions, an awakening of yourself, an awakening of the connections or the disconnection, an awakening of impermanence. And it's kind of like you're in a fog, like literal fog. You're opening up your eyes in fog. You might not immediately see clearly, but you do start to notice the shadows, what's around you, yourself, where you are in retrospect to the things that are around you that you don't see very clearly. And you start to see the trees or the line in the road or the sun that's shining behind that fog more clearly, but differently. So I would say grief is definitely, for me, has been an awakening of feeling.
I love that analogy. I actually used to have a workbook called The Grief Awakening. And I felt like that same feeling of unlearning and relearning and seeing myself more clearly for the first time ever.
Absolutely. We look at ourselves in the mirror and we see ourselves, but are we really looking at ourselves? Awakening.
When you think about hope, what is giving you hope right now?
What gives me hope right now is just seeing how grief can transform us. I mean, losing my dad, navigating the estrangement from my mother, experiencing the identity shift that came with my recent retirement. All of those things have shown me the depth of love and loss and resilience, my art, the somatic practices, my work as a grief coach. All of that, it just reminds me that life can still hold meaning and connection, even though we've lost someone that we deeply love, depended on, and thought we couldn't live without. We still have to give ourselves permission to live life. And all of these things, all of these experiences that I've had, that's what's giving me hope to have a more meaningful and peaceful life.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, you're welcome.
Before we finish, is there anything else that you wanted to share?
Just, for those of you who are thinking about taking the certification, just do it. There is nothing that you are going to lose. You're going to gain so much insight. You'll meet so many amazing people. I have made friends all over the world that I call friends, that they're not just people on a screen. Like, these are my friends. They know me so deeply. I love them. I've learned our love is infinite. And so we can never run out of that. I would say just follow your heart. Do all of the things that will bring you joy for yourself. And if you're being called to help anyone in their grief, that calling is not going to go away. Pursue it. Keep following your heart. And when you're ready, let the world know that you're there and someone will find you.
Thank you, Denise. And where can people find you? So if they want to work with you, if they're drawn to your work, how can they find you?
Well, people can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and my website, all under the same name, Lighthouse Grief Coaching. And my motto is where your grief is witnessed and your healing is sacred. Lighthouse Grief Coaching, and I will be there waiting for you to, as Kayleigh said, shine the light, bring your grief to the surface, and we will work through it with lots of compassion, love, awakening. You don't have to be afraid. Seek out assistance in all the ways. You never know what will be the one thing or the one word that will ultimately lead you to some joy.
I'll put all the links down below so people can easily find you and your work.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, it's been so lovely to have you on the podcast, Denise, and obviously on the certification. You was my first cohort, and I feel like it's always going to have a special place in my heart.
Yes.
Been such an amazing journey with you all. As you said, like, the relationships in the certification are so beautiful. We've really created such an amazing community. So I'm so glad that you've been a part of it. And I'm rallying right behind you, like, as you grow into your coaching business. I'm just so honored to have you on this journey, to see you, grow and then give back what you've learned to others. Honestly, it's been an incredible journey having you in the program. So thank you.
Thank you, Kayleigh. Thank you for all of the hard work that you did. I cannot imagine the years that it took you. This is not a couple months. The years that it must have taken you to visualize how you wanted this to be, how you wanted it to be rolled out, how you wanted it to feel. Let me tell you, as I mentioned, I have taken other certifications and done so much homework on various other certifications, but this is the one. So thank you for everything you did when I didn't even know you were doing it. And thank you for bringing it across my grief journey.
Oh, honestly, you always say such lovely, lovely things. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I can't wait for us to have a proper hug.
Me neither. When I hug you, inhale because I will not let you breathe for a good minute.
Oh, Denise, thank you so much for chatting with me today and doing the work you do. If anybody wants to ask Denise questions or reach out to Denise about working with her, go and have a look. Lighthouse Grief Coaching. Got that right, didn't I?
Absolutely. There, people can book a discovery call with me and just ask all of the questions. They might not know what a discovery call is or what holistic grief coaching is, and I'm willing to educate and help people make the decision to pursue holistic grief coaching for their grief journey.
All right. Well, I hope that you have a lovely rest of your day, and we will obviously see each other in mentorship and hopefully in real life soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kayleigh. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me on the Holistic Grief Coach podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, please take a moment to subscribe, share this with a friend, or leave us a review. Every share and review helps this podcast reach more people who need it, and together we can shine more light into the grief space. And if you feel called to take this work deeper, or even train as a holistic grief coach, you can learn more by simply DMing me on Instagram @goodgrief_UK. Until next time, I look forward to seeing you soon.